Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of the wellness series with Nature's Fair. So it's just 7 o'clock now, and so I'm just gonna wait for everybody to kind of log in because it's just 7 now. So we'll give some time for everybody to join us for part 2 of the wellness series. And tonight we're gonna be diving into one of my favorite topics to talk about, probably because I'm in my 40s and I'm going through this stage of my life. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that tonight, about I want to say kind of like the fear and the anticipation that led up to me going into my 40s, and all of that taboo and that stigma that us ladies feel when we're entering this next stage in our life. So this is what really made me passionate to talk about this. So tonight is going to be, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. And really because it's from a personal level. So as we have everybody, logging in, I'll just introduce myself. So my name is Shalane Wilkins. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist. I'm Vancouver based. Actually, Vernon is my hometown. So it's nice to be partnering with my friends at Nature's Fair to be doing this wellness series with you guys. So if you guys joined in last week, we talked about our hormones and we talked about how to have healthy hormones and healthy cycles. And then tonight we're going to be talking about perimenopausal and our menopausal years. So there's a lot of you guys that have registered and signed on for tonight, so we're going to have a great conversation. And then next week we're going to be talking about men's health and their hormones, because they have hormones too. And then in 2 weeks' time, we're going to have a webinar. And during this webinar, if you haven't already registered, make sure you do. This is where I'm really going to dive into the nutrition side of it. We're going to talk about supplementation. I'm really going to take these last 4 weeks that I've been with you guys on these lives. I'm going to put it all together. And then I'm just going to give you all those tips and tricks and lifestyle measures and all of those things so that you guys can, apply them in your lives for happy, healthy hormones. So a little bit about how tonight's going to go. So if you joined me last week, you know that I answer all of the questions. So please feel free to ask away during this. I'll do my best to look on the screen and answer them as I go. But if I don't answer your questions while we're through this live, please put them there. I'll go back at the end of the live and I'll make sure to answer each of them individually for you guys. So please make sure you ask away because I'm here to answer them. First off, I just want to make sure everybody knows I am a registered holistic nutritionist. I'm not a medical doctor, so we will talk about things to take to your healthcare practitioner and recommendations when working with a natural health practitioner or your medical doctor. So I would just want to make sure everybody, we get that out there. These are just some of my guides and tips, and from my personal experience, I stand from a nutrition aspect as well as natural supports, but I never want to give you any medical advice or anything outside of that. That is definitely something you want to take up with your natural practitioner or your healthcare provider. So how it works for the giveaways, because every one of these we have a giveaway. This week I'm going to be giving away a gift basket with some of my favorite brands of the supplements that I personally use in my everyday life. So how that works is you guys have that like and that heart button. So throw a bunch of hearts and likes and ask away. The more that you do, the more that you're entered in. Nature's Fair will choose a lucky winner. And then also we'll choose it at the end. We'll announce the winner and then I will reach out to you personally to send that. So yes, awesome. Look at you guys are already so good at this. So welcome. Oh, wow. We've got so many of you guys on here already. So I'll give a description of tonight. One of the questions I do see, yes, you can watch last week's live. It is on Nature's Fair Facebook page in the video section. So you can watch it all about the hormones there. So great little way to get to know your hormones. Tonight, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into those hormones where we're really going to talk about those perimenopausal and menopausal years. So girls, we're going to sit back. We're going to have some girl talk. I know that this is definitely a conversation that is in my friend group. I know going into my 40s, this is a conversation that I was like, I just thought, you know what, I'm not ready to go into this next stage in my life. And I feel like a majority of us women are the same way. We kind of get, whether we're in our 40s or maybe, in our 50s, whatever stage we're at, when we all of a sudden, I think the thing for me was all of a sudden when I was in the car driving, and I feel like this is what happens to us. It was, well, maybe more so for me, but I was in the car driving, you look in the rearview mirror and all of a sudden you're like, when did I get so old, or what's happening, or what you start to notice all these changes. Maybe it's like chin hair, or you start to notice some new wrinkles, or you notice all of these things going on. Okay. So maybe your periods start to get irregular. You start noticing that you feel a little bit more emotional. It's kind of like if you've had gone through pregnancy or have had children that, you know, when we get pregnant, we have roller coasters of emotions. It feels like we're going through this all over again when we're stepping into these perimenopausal years. And a majority of the women that I work with and I talk to, a lot of the times what they say is, I just really wish I knew what I was getting into. I wish I knew more about this. I wish there was more research. I wish there was more conversations about this. And there is more today than there was even a few years ago. But this is really what brought me to doing what I'm passionate about and what led me to creating a hot mess, which is a women's health and wellness forum that talks about all of our hormones. It talks about all the things that we go through. And so I just really felt like there was a need for this conversation. So tonight, girls, we're going to get into this. So what we're going to dive into, and there's already so many great questions out here, so awesome, keep them coming. What we're going to talk about tonight is what perimenopause actually means and what menopause means, because I feel like there's a little bit of confusion when people think about like what our perimenopausal years are. And I say years, and I'll go into detail with that, because a lot of the times we think, okay, so one of the questions I know for me too is, so I'm 41, is one of the things is like, is it menopause? Like, is something happening in my body? And so what I actually like to tell women all the time in my practice and any of the literature, if you've attended any of my talks or my webinars, is what I want to do is empower women to take the driver's seat in their health, okay? You are in control of your health. So I want you to feel empowered and inspired to take the initiative, to ask the questions, to question your doctor, to make the changes that you need, and to have that awareness. Knowledge is power, ladies, in all aspects of our lives, okay? So we don't have to wait until we, get into our perimenopausal years. If you're not even there yet, you still can be proactive. If you are, last week we talked about how we could have healthy cycles at any age. This is definitely one of those things. You really want to be proactive in your health in all aspects: immunity, hormones, your mental, and your physical health. So we're really going to compile that. So when I talk about all of the things that, perimenopausal and menopausal years entail, I'm really wanting to empower you guys to just take control of this so you can feel confident and empowered. And I definitely don't want any of you guys to shy away from this time in your life, okay? A lot of women hold, and myself included, I even did, a lot of women hold a lot of shame and a lot of like, oh gosh, does this mean I'm old because I'm going through this? No, this is just the next stage. This is just the end of our reproductive years. And I can't even take credit for this, but I was listening to a podcast and doing research, because that's what I do all the time. And a woman said this is our second puberty. And I really liked it. It really stuck with me because, when we're going through puberty in our teenage years, it's a bit chaotic. It's crazy. We have ebbs and flows in our emotions. We don't know what's going on. And I feel like perimenopause and menopause is the same thing. All of a sudden, we're going through this next stage in our life where our periods are diminishing, our hormones are all over the place, our moods and everything, like all of a sudden we just feel like, what is going on? We feel like a hot mess. And that's why I created that forum, and that's why I call it a hot mess, because you literally feel like a hot mess, like physically, mentally, and emotionally. So perimenopause, you guys, when I say your perimenopausal years, because I've seen some questions already, these are the years leading up until menopause. Okay, and perimenopause, our perimenopausal years can be anywhere between 7 to 10 years. Now, don't fall off your chair, don't gasp, don't think, oh gosh, I'm going to have to go through all this. This is just from the beginning of the time. This is the beginning of our body starting to slow down and decrease the production of our sex hormones that we talked about last week. So those two hormones that we're really going to talk about tonight is our estrogen and our progesterone. Even though there are other hormones that are a part of our sexual, hormones like DHEA, testosterone, but the ones that we really talk about when we're going through our perimenopausal years is that estrogen and progesterone. So just a little bit of a highlight from last week. Our estrogen is responsible for our reproduction. It's our main, I call her the queen bee hormone, okay, intersexual hormones, okay? So estrogen is responsible for giving us our curves, our breast production, building up that endometrium building up that endometrial lining in our uterus. It's responsible for our puberty, all that. So we need abundance of that estrogen. And then progesterone works on that teeter-totter with estrogen. So our estrogen levels rise, and then our progesterone rise. So progesterone is responsible for making that endometrium nice and thick. It's responsible for holding our pregnancies to help us stay, to get that egg implantation. And then when we don't, get pregnant, that's when we shed the lining and our progesterone levels drop. But as we go through the years, which is totally normal and totally natural, our ovaries stop producing that estrogen and that progesterone naturally. So as we go through our perimenopausal years, during our natural cycle, what ends up happening is our ovaries slowly start decreasing that estrogen. So we start to notice little signs and symptoms where we're like, is this normal? Is this okay? Is this perimenopausal? I'm too young for this. And I've seen some questions already, like, what are the years that we should be experiencing this? So technically, when you read things online and research, they say that women will start to go through their perimenopausal years sometime in their early 40s, reaching the estimated age of menopause, which, you guys, menopause just means 12 full months without a menstrual cycle. So we're going to talk a little bit more again about why we should be tracking our cycles. We dived into that last week, but we're going to talk about why it's even more important during this time. But menopause just means a full 12 months without your periods. So you may go 11 months without a period and then get your period, and then you have to start counting all over again. So 12 full months without a menstrual cycle is when you're actually technically in menopause. So menopause just means 12 full months without a cycle, and then you're in perimenopausal years. Okay, so it's that celebration of like you no longer get your cycles. And ladies, there's a lot of feelings that are wrapped up in that too. And I want to make that, I think it's really important that we all acknowledge the feelings that come with the end of our reproductive years. Whether or not we've had pregnancies or have children, it is a change and a shift in our bodies because we are born to, procreate. We're born to, make babies. This is our natural thing that our body does. Whether or not we decide to have children or not, it is a natural part. It's nature. So when our reproductive years are ending or diminishing and we're going into this next stage, there is things that are like grief associated with this. There can be anxiety and depression. We may feel a little sadness, things that are all wrapped up in this. And you know what? This is totally normal. This is something that many millions of women go through, and millions of women shy away from this, but you shouldn't, because guess what? This is a natural thing that happens to us. Just like when we get our periods, when we're in our teenage years, menopause is a natural occurrence of our reproductive years ending. Yet we all shy away from this. We all want to stay quiet around the things that are happening. So tonight, we're going to dive into those things. And tonight, I want you guys all to feel empowered moving into the next stage, having the information and the knowledge that you need to kind of go through this stage. So tons and tons of questions already, you guys. I'm going to dive into all of this. So perimenopausal years can be anywhere between 7 to 10 years. So like I said, usually in our mid-40s for women, menopause happening usually in our early 50s when they say, but this has shifted and changed. So my perimenopausal years and my journey is going to be entirely different than yours, right? Just like my cycles are different than your guys's. We're all individual. We have our own hormonal endocrine system. Everybody's journey is different. We may have similar symptoms and signs, and we can relate to things that are going on. And that's the beautiful thing about women is we create community and we have compassion for one another and we can relate. And that is why one of the things I'll talk about tonight is finding a support system and gaining, getting knowledge and working with women and opening up that conversation with women, because I feel like the more we do it, the more we're like, okay, I've got this. You need that team. You need that community around you to help you go through this stage, right? So my journey is going to be totally different. So a lot of the times, especially now, women are actually noticing that they're having perimenopausal symptoms earlier than that. So this is where there's a lot of confusion. A lot of the times women will get on Google and we're like, what age does perimenopausal symptoms start? And then we look and it says, 42 to 44, yet we're 35, 36, and we're like, my periods are getting weird, or they're changing, or maybe you've had a night sweat all of a sudden, you've had a couple glasses of wine, you go to bed, you wake up in the middle of the night and you've drenched your bag. Throw a bunch of hearts out there for how many of you guys have experienced a night sweat. If you've experienced a night sweat, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You wake up and you're like, holy smokes. It's just like you're in a sauna, your bed is like drenched, you're not sure what's going on, you almost have to change your sheets. Like it's brutal. So sometimes this happens in our late 30s or our early 40s. And we're kind of, that's when we start to question, we're like, what is that? Like, is that normal? Did I have a fever? Did it break? Maybe you start having cramps. Maybe you're having more breast pain. Maybe you've started to notice that your metabolism's slowing down a little bit. Like, you're starting to notice things are not quite how they used to be. But Google is saying something different. Or maybe some of you guys have gone to your doctors and have been like, hey, this is what's happening. And maybe your doctors are like, you might be too early to be going into our perimenopausal years, or you might not be going into menopause. And you walk away and you feel just as confused. Well, you know what, you guys, you're not the only one. This happens to all of us. There happens to women all the time where we know something is going on, but you know, according to the things that we read online, or maybe I have an amazing family doctor, so my doctor is fantastic. She knows I'm a nut bar. I ask her a million questions. I always say, I'm like, you know what I do for a living? I'm a holistic nutritionist, so I'm gonna question you with all of your conventional medicine, but she's great. But honestly, sometimes I feel like women get very frustrated because they know something's going on in their body, they know something is shifting, but according to what is researched or what normal age that women go through this, it's not tying up, it's not matching up. So you're left walking around going like, but I know something's happening. So last week we really talked about, you know, how our body is like a car and it sends off a bunch of signals. So when things are, you know, not working, like the dashboard lights up when we're, you know, maybe we're out of gas, we're not feeding ourselves properly. Like I correlated that. It's the same kind of thing. Like, you know your body better than anybody else. So if you are, you know, you understand your periods, you understand your cycles, you know when you're just not feeling right, you know your moods, those kind of things, you know that. So it can be very, very frustrating when you're trying to voice that to a professional, or even, you know, even your partners or things like that, when you're like, something's not right, but according to everything that I've read online, you know, it's not this. I'm encouraging you to follow that. That's your intuition. That's you following your body. Write that stuff down. Do as much research and that you can around this. So we talked about tracking your cycles and all of the power that comes with that. And that's just as important when we're going through our perimenopausal years. So things, you guys, I wrote a big list because I wanted to make sure that I got all of the signs and symptoms. Because I have read so many forums, I've spoken to so many ladies of different ages, and perimenopausal symptoms and menopausal symptoms, like I said, are different for everybody, but it's not just a handful of them. And this is what I've learned over the last year and a half of researching this. When we think about our perimenopausal years, we think of like menopause of like our periods just ending. So we just associate it with, you know, our cycles ending. So our periods, because definitely like shifts in our periods could be, our periods could get heavier, they could get lighter, maybe they get a little bit more sporadic. So we may notice that, you know, we have our periods every 28 to 32 days. That's our normal cycle. They can shrink down to 21 days. Maybe you don't get your period for 2 months and then you get another one. Maybe you only bleed for 2 days and then the next month you bleed for 7 and it's super heavy. They start to get really irregular and out of whack. Maybe you're starting to have more cramping. Maybe you're having some breast fullness, or your breasts actually are seeming like they're not as full. Breast pain. Maybe you're having some digestive disturbances. You're having a lot of cramping, a lot of, you know, irritable bowel symptoms, things like that. You're noticing hormonal imbalances. Like, this is what we really, the symptoms that we associate when it comes to, you know, our perimenopausal years. We really do talk about hot flashes. That's the most common one that's most bothersome, is hot flashes and those night sweats. But some of the other ones that we, you know, we don't really hear, you do see it in the research, but we don't correlate it to, is a lot of the things that are, you know, mentally and emotionally taxing on us. And this is where I feel like a lot of women feel discouraged because they never had these kind of things happen before. And then all of a sudden they feel like they're crazy. Like, I can attest to that. Sometimes I've had days where I'm like, what is wrong with me? I can't stop crying. Like, this is nuts. And I know that a lot of you women watching right now, feel the same way. So a lot of the symptoms that are associated with our perimenopausal years, and I'm going to read this list. I normally don't have notes, but I wanted to read because hopefully you guys can see that this is all associated with this. So we talked about our periods, the breast pain. I saw a lot of people writing on here talking about the thinning of the hair, okay? So we may start to notice, and if you've had babies, then you do know that we lose our hair after, we can have hair loss after a pregnancy, but the same kind of thing happens when we go into our perimenopausal years. Our hair will start to thin. Maybe we get like those parking spots here. We get a lot of dry brittles. I have it. I just got my hair dyed here, so you guys are probably laughing because you can see the hair dye there, but I just got my hair done. Anyway, so we start to have like that thinness, those kind of things, okay? So thinning hair, maybe we have dry, flaky skin. Our skin starts to change. Maybe we start to notice that we're aging more. So as we get older, our collagen levels will naturally start to decrease. We're going to talk about our collagen in a little bit, but we start to notice that we get a little bit more of those fine lines. Things become a little bit noticeable. Maybe we're noticing that we're getting a few chin hairs here. Lucky us, this starts to shift and change. That's a change in our hormones, our androgens, and our testosterone levels. Our moods really start to shift. One of the biggest things that I have seen with women in our perimenopausal and menopausal years is they're riddled with anxiety. So you may have never experienced anxiety in your life before, then all of a sudden, everything makes you anxious. You're going to bed at night and you've got the hamster wheel going a million miles a minute. You can't sleep. You're worried about the grocery list. You're worried about the what ifs. We're going through a global pandemic right now, so I'm sure that's kind of putting us all into like high gear. We're wondering about how we're going to pay the bills. We're wondering about like, are we going to, is something drastic going to happen? Like it's something like all of a sudden we can't shut the hamster wheel of anxiety off in our brain, and we've never had this. I've worked with women who have been so riddled with anxiety of getting in their car and driving down the street because they're so worried somebody's going to hit them or things like that. So anxiety, you guys, is definitely a sign of perimenopause. And we're going to talk about anxiety levels and what that's associated with our other hormones. And if you were attending last week, we talked a lot about cortisol. So in our lifestyle section tonight, we're going to talk about why reducing stress levels and reducing that cortisol will help with anxiety levels. So it's all associated. We may notice that we're getting heart palpitations. So going to bed at night, all of a sudden you're having like those heart palpitations, very much related to anxiety. Fatigue is real. Insomnia, you can't sleep at night. That can be due to the anxiety, could be due to the night sweats. Maybe we're drinking abundance of coffee. I've already talked about skin conditions, but dry skin, we may start noticing we're getting different kinds of rashes on our, like bumpy white rashes on our skin. More cellulite, a loss of that lean muscle tissue, loss of our breast fullness, brain fog. Brain fog is also really real. So can't find your keys, you swore you put them in your purse, you're running around the house, you swore you put them in there, but yet you hung them up on the keychain, and this is a classic in my house. My family laughs at me. I'm always like, who took my keys? What happened? And then sure enough, they're like exactly where I left them. But brain fog, loss of concentration, things like that, that is all associated with perimenopause. Forgetfulness, obviously, depression. So depression, like feeling really down in the dumps. We don't know who we are. We can't relate to ourselves anymore. How many of you guys have woken up in the morning, looked in the mirror and been like, what's happened to me? What happened? Where did I go? I don't know who I am anymore. These are all the things that we can experience, right? Especially that mental and emotional part of it. Hot flashes. We may start to notice the weight gain. So I've seen a ton of people putting on the weight gain here, and we're going to touch on the weight gain because there is, as we get older, our metabolism starts to slow down, but there's a lot that we can do. And I'm going to talk about that Bermuda Triangle of weight gain when it comes to our, our perimenopausal and menopausal years and that shift. Fatigue, insomnia, migraines, definitely migraines. Those are from those fluctuations in those hormones. Hot feeling, not feeling ourselves, I talked about. Irritability, severe PMS kind of thing, moods, and again, back to insomnia and fatigue. So I just read off probably about 30 different signs and symptoms of perimenopause. So before everybody starts panicking and freaking out, if you haven't gone through perimenopause thinking these are all the things, not everybody gets these signs and symptoms. You don't get all of these. Like I said, everybody's journey is different. But throughout those 7 to 10 years, you may experience some of these things. And this is where I see a lot of women suffer. And I say suffer because we spend so much time we start to experience these things, and I think a lot of it is we start to experience these signs and the symptoms and we don't really know what to do with them. And like I said, sometimes we go to our doctors and we talk about it, or sometimes we're just like, I don't know if this is real. I don't know if it is even associated with our perimenopausal years. But sometimes we live with it, and it gets to a point where, you know, we get really bombarded with them and they get really, really miserable. And we get to the point where we're like, I just can't do this anymore. And so my goal is to empower all you women reading off of all of these signs and symptoms to kind of look at this and be like, okay, so maybe I'm experiencing this. There are some things that we can naturally do to help reduce these signs and symptoms, maybe be proactive in not having these signs and symptoms, how we can naturally support this time, the questions that we can ask, the opening up the conversation and finding that support group during this, and then, you know, going through this stage of our journey without suffering. Ladies, we are not meant to suffer during this time, okay? So there's a lot of things, whether that's going on hormone replacement therapy. I had a lot of questions about that last week. Speaking with your healthcare practitioner, different tests that you can do to help support you during this time. So we've talked about all of the signs and symptoms associated with perimenopause, okay? So perimenopause involves physical changes. So we've talked about our body. So when we're going through this time, our periods start to fluctuate and change. What ends up happening, and I mentioned this in the beginning, when we go through our perimenopausal years, our ovaries slowly decrease the production of our estrogen and progesterone, okay? And so when we start to decrease that production of that estrogen in our ovaries, that diminishes our periods. But we still need estrogen in our body, and our adrenal glands will actually kick in to start to make that for us, because we still need it for our bone health. We need it, we need it for our bone health. We need it for, the health of our reproductive system, but we're just not our ovaries are just not producing it how it used to. It cuts that off. Our adrenals kick in and to create it, but we need it for, our cardiovascular health and our bone health. So we'll notice that our periods will start to change and diminish, and then full on menopause is when we have 12 full months without a period. During that time, we have all these different signs and symptoms. Some emotional changes we talked about, that anxiety, that irritability. So kind of very similar to when you're having PMS, those fluctuations in those hormones. So a lot of women will go through this time in their lives as their hormones are diminishing, that estrogen, progesterone, sometimes the testosterone can get wonky, or androgen, and that cortisol definitely plays a role, and even our DHEA, which is known as our anti-aging hormone. It is important for our other sex, other sex hormones, but nobody really kind of talks too much about our DHEA, but it does play a role in our menopausal years with our aging, okay, and even our cardiovascular health. So all of these other hormones start to get all wonky. And I've seen a ton of things about thinning hair. A lot of that has to do with the decrease in our estrogen and even our testosterone levels. So right off the bat, because I see so many questions that are talking about this, but if you are going through a lot of these signs and these symptoms that I've talked about, or depending on the journey or stage in the journey that you're in your menopausal and your menopausal years, one of the things that I always tell clients to do is, get some testing done. So one of the things, and my doctor actually said this to me because I brought it to her attention, and I work with a naturopath doctor and I work with my medical doctor, and I think it's great to have best of the two worlds, okay? So my medical doctor was like, I could test your hormones, but it's only going to test you like the day that we do the blood test. But working with a naturopath doctor or doing something like Dutch testing, you can actually do like a 24-hour, urine panel that will test your cortisol levels, your progesterone, your testosterone, your estrogens. We have 3 different types of estrogen. So it can do a full panel. And if you are suffering from a variety of different signs and symptoms, and when I say suffering, like it's just your life, you feel like it's unmanageable, I really recommend you paying I think it's about $500-600. So if you have coverage to work with a naturopath, but paying to get that testing done so that you can see actually what hormones are really out of balance. Because some of the treatment protocols and working with somebody like myself, like a nutritionist and a naturopath together, if you want to do the more natural route during this journey, this gives you a better picture of what's going on in your body. We can look at, a variety of the natural hormones, support and supplements that can help balance out certain hormones. If you wanted to go on bioidentical or hormone replacement therapy, you're working with a medical professional that can look at the hormones that are actually lower and how they can help balance out those signs and symptoms. Generally, people go on hormone replacement therapy to really help with their moods. Weight is usually a big one, as well as the hot flashes and the night sweats, because those can be very, very bothersome. So if you're somebody that suffers through a lot of that, getting something like Dutch testing or working with a naturopath doctor can give you a better picture of where your hormones are at. So definitely something I recommend. So we talked about the physical changes, the emotional changes, and then we've also talked about the mental changes during perimenopause. So lots of questions. What is the cause of menopause? And we already know it's a natural occurring thing that happens in our body, you guys. So we go through this as we get older. It's part of our natural aging process. It's the end of our reproductive years. So for myself, I'm 41. I've probably been in perimenopause for probably about 2 or 3 years. I'm definitely noticing now, and it's probably from the stress levels that I've been going through in the last year with just the pandemic and everything, working from home and kids being at home, and all of a sudden I'm a school teacher and all of that stuff that's entwined with it. But I've definitely noticed that my symptoms of my cycles and my hormones have definitely shifted and changed. A little bit more moody, definitely crying a lot more. Like, it's just crazy. I never was a person to cry. Now I cry in commercials. My kids are 12 and 14 and they're always like, "Are you crying?" I'm like, no, maybe. I don't know. I'm just really emotional. Like, these are the things that are going on. And definitely have noticed that I've had some weight gain, and weight does play a role in it. So naturally occurring different ages for us all, but this is just kind of when our body naturally stops producing that estrogen and our progesterone. So some people will go into things, what is known as premature menopause. Okay, so premature menopause is generally when we lose our cycles before the age of 40. Okay, so this isn't even going into perimenopause. This is like full on being in menopause, so no cycles for a full 12 months by the age of 40. And this can be brought on by, autoimmune disorders and things like that. As well as I was asked lots last week about induced menopause. So lots of women have talked about what, depending on your age, or I saw one of the questions, like if you haven't had a pregnancy or baby, does that change the age that you go through menopause? Which is a great question. So induced menopause is if you've had surgery, so if you've had hysterectomy, so there's various types of hysterectomies. So if you have a hysterectomy where your ovaries are still intact, then your ovaries are still going to produce estrogen, and they'll naturally decrease that estrogen. So you'll still go through menopause, but not at a faster rate because you still have their ovaries. If one ovary is removed, then that other ovary will actually slow down its production quite a bit. And if you have a complete hysterectomy where that's removed, or have your cycles and shed the endometrial lining. So that still means that you will have some of those menopausal symptoms. Okay. We're going through a lot of stress, so they're noticing like, yeah, you know what, I've kind of noticed these signs coming back, because when our lifestyle plays a role in it, when we're highly stressed, this can make these signs and symptoms more, I don't want to say severe, but they can bring those back. So, I'm just noticing you guys can't hear me. Oh, did I lose sound? Can you guys hear me? Just want to make sure. Does everybody hear me still? Sorry. Okay. Hang on. I'll hold on. How about now? I just don't want to lose you guys. Oh, can't hear me. Okay. All right. Oh no, what happened? Where did my sound go? Uh-oh. Oh no. Okay, hang on one second. Let me just see. Uh-oh. Okay, can you hear me now? Yes? Okay, good. Okay, great. So you guys can all hear me. Okay, great. I think what just happened, we lost it. Okay, great. Thank you for being patient. I'm so glad you're okay. I think what just happened is actually my husband just took my daughter to lacrosse, and I think the Bluetooth just kicked in the driveway. So sorry about that, you guys. But you guys all stayed, so we're great. Okay, let's go back. Oh, all right. Okay, so what I was talking about before was that I was talking about when you hit menopause, that doesn't mean that you don't have those menopausal symptoms, okay? So you can lose your period for 12 months, but you still can have those night sweats and those hot sweats. You still can have that irritability, that anxiety. It just means that you're no longer having your period. So a lot of people think too, like once they lose their period and they're in full menopause, that the signs and symptoms will disappear. No, we can still experience them. Does that mean we suffer? No, there are different ways that we can go about it, and that there are things like our lifestyle and our nutrition and our stress levels all can play a role in how often and frequently these can happen in our body. And that's why a lot of people will finally go to their doctors and be like, okay, I can't live like this anymore because they're so miserable. So you know what? That's why tonight we're talking about all the things that we can help relieve these signs and symptoms. So we talked about naturally occurring, induced, and that premature menopause and what's going on. So I want to dive into what these lifestyle changes can be when it's around this perimenopausal time, because it's not just it is a change in our lifestyle, okay? It's the end of our reproductive years, and it's a journey, you guys, okay? So this doesn't just happen overnight. As we know, our perimenopausal years can take 7 to 10 years. Some women will only have 1 or 2 years of signs and symptoms. Some of us can have, 10 years of these symptoms. Like I said, our journey is different, but there are things that can play a role in how this goes about. So when it comes to our lifestyle, it's really important for us to be proactive in our health at any stage in the game, okay? So it's never too late to make changes. And changes basically mean they can be small. You don't have to be like, okay, I have to do this right now. I attended her talk. She told me I needed to change my nutrition. I need to do this. Like, I don't want you guys to feel overwhelmed. Going through this time in our life is already overwhelming enough. But creating small changes in our habit and being proactive on things is the right direction. So when it comes to our lifestyle, our nutrition is very, very important. We want to focus on eating healthy, well-balanced meals. So I know, I'm a mom, I've got 2 kids. I know what it's like when we put everybody else's needs in front of us and we're on the back burner. And then all of a sudden, we're going through this time in our life and we're like, what happened? How did I gain 30 pounds? I don't want to live like this anymore. How do I get out of this hole? I feel miserable. Like, I get it. I've been there. I've done it. I'm living it. So we really just want to focus on nourishing our bodies, because this is very important for our hormones. The foods that we eat will play a huge impact on our hormonal health and our signs and the symptoms of perimenopause and menopause, okay? So if we are feeding ourselves a diet full of greasy, fatty foods, lots of sugar, we're not going to feel very good, okay? And that's not benefiting our bodies. So really focus on eating healthy, well-balanced meals that include healthy proteins, healthy fats, good complex carbs, and a diet full of fruits and vegetables, okay? So think dark leafy greens, anything from the brassica family, that helps balance out our excess estrogen in our body. So things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, those things. If you're not a big veggie eater, find one that you really like. Just really incorporate a lot of healthy vegetables, healthy fats, things like olive oil, oil, avocados, seeds, so flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp hearts, nut butters, those kind of things. Okay, so making sure that you're eating complex carbs, fibrous carbs, and protein and healthy fats at every meal. Okay, does this mean that you cut out all bad foods in your diet. No, now is not the time to diet, ladies. Okay, I know especially some of us will may be like, okay, I've put on a bunch of weight, I want to lose it. When we switch how we're eating, if we focus on eating nourishing whole foods and we're feeding ourselves properly. When I say properly, we're not skipping meals, we're not under eating. I see this all the time with women. Under eating, you guys, ladies, plays havoc on our body. It not only stresses us out, but it also makes our body go into starvation mode. So we store the food that we're eating as fat because it thinks that we're not going to feed it again. So thinking less is more is not ideal. We should not be eating 1,200 calories a day, okay? We should be eating at least a minimum of 1,600 to 1,800 calories a day. We should be nourishing our body with whole foods. And when I say calories, it's really important because whole foods, like good, healthy foods, we want to make sure that we're getting calorie dense foods, okay? Not boxed foods. So really focus on getting those, healthy fats, proteins, complex carbs, and fibrous vegetables, okay? So make sure that you're doing that 3 times a day. Don't undereat. You want to fuel yourself with good food. If you can eat organic as possible, awesome. If that's not in your budget, that's totally okay. Do as much as you can. If you can make sure you're eating grass-fed, no growth hormones, antibiotics when you're coming to your proteins. Somebody's just asked about plant-based. If plant-based is how you live, that's totally fine. What's really important for women when it comes to our hormones, we need healthy fats, okay? Because our sex hormones are based upon healthy levels of cholesterol, so we need abundance of healthy fats, as well as we need protein. So if you're sorry you guys, that is my golden retriever growling beside me. That's really funny. So if you guys are eating a plant-based diet, make sure you're getting that plant-based protein. You can find protein, chickpeas, things like that. There's an abundance of plant-based proteins that you can be eating. If you eat tofu, because I get asked this all the time, soy products, make sure you're eating organic as possible, okay? You want to make sure it's organic. It is very heavily GMO'd, but don't just eat soy-based products every single day. Rotate. So one of the questions I'm going to answer right now is on intermittent fasting. I get this asked a lot. So intermittent fasting, you guys, is great for resetting the metabolism. It also gives our digestive tract a break. Intermittent fasting only works if you are eating consistently through that time period where you eat. So say you fast for 12 hours and then you eat through that window of 12 hours, whole balanced meals. If you're a person that's skipping meals, you're drinking coffee, you're only eating a salad with a bit of chicken, you're nibbling here and there during that window, you're undernourishing your body, okay? Again, so I see women and people, not even just women, but people do this all the time. Less is more is what they think, okay? So if I fast for 12 hours, but then I have a coffee, and then I just have a salad and a chicken, and then I'm only gonna eat this small amount, you're still under eating. So you have to make sure that you're getting enough nutrient-dense food in that window and that you're consistent, okay? So full macros at every meal. And I feel like people, it may work in the beginning, you may start to lose a little bit of weight during it, but then you may notice that it stops working and then you gain more weight. And I see this with people all the time with intermittent fasting. They'll either fast for a certain amount of time and they're so hungry and they're starving, and then during that time of the eating window, they just gorge on all the foods that they can during that time, but that's not going to be beneficial. So if you have questions about how to intermittent fast, and if that's something that you're curious about, you could definitely work with a nutritionist who can get you on the right track and getting consistent with that. You don't need to fast every single day. You can incorporate it 1 or 2 times a week just to get your feet wet with it. But I don't want to say it's not beneficial, but it really, you have to do it properly and make sure that you're eating nutrient-dense food, okay? So lifestyle changes. We also want to talk about our stress levels, ladies, okay? So if you're under a lot of stress, your hormones are going to be all wacky. So how many of you guys right now are noticing that your symptoms of perimenopause and menopause are just like off the charts? So you're having hot flashes, night sweats, maybe you're more irritable, anxiety, maybe your periods have gotten worse, maybe you've gained 10, 15 pounds in the last year. You're noticing that things are just crazy. So stress causes so much havoc in our lives and inflammation. And also, it definitely plays a role in like our hormones and the signs and symptoms. It also ages us more, okay? So when we're under high amounts of stress, it affects our thyroid, our sex hormones, and even our skin health. So I know I talked about our collagen production. I've seen a lot about our hair thinning. So one of the things that we do notice when we're under high amounts of stress, and especially when we're going into our perimenopausal years, is that we start to notice that we are aging. All of a sudden we look in the mirror and we're like, I look old. Where did all this come from? So as we get older, our collagen production naturally starts to decrease. Okay, so in our 20s, it decreases by like, I don't know, let's say about 10%. In our 30s, it can be 25 to 35%. And then unfortunately for women, once we hit our 40s, especially once we go into our menopausal years, that collagen production can decrease by up to 50%. So collagen production is responsible for the elasticity of our skin, our fine lines, our wrinkles, the health of our joints or cartilages and ligaments. So we may even notice like some of the things that people experience is joint pain. Maybe we're starting to get more injuries as we get older. So we may have more aches and pains or pulling ligaments. Things start to hurt. Like I said, maybe we're noticing a little bit more cellulite. So, where our skin was like nice, dewy and glowy, we're losing that nice, moistured skin, things start to happen. That's from a loss of collagen. So as we get older, it's really important to either supplement with a product to keep up our collagen production. I get asked all the time, how do you, reverse the signs of aging? We can't reverse the signs of aging, but we can be proactive. And one of the main things that women really do focus on during this time is that we feel old. We start to notice our aging. It's normal, but it really bothers us, and that can play a role in our mental and emotional health. So taking a collagen product and making sure that you're getting enough vitamin C rich foods, which is essential for collagen production, is really important during this time. It also helps with our hair. So hair, skin, and nails. Type 1 collagen is what we find in the exterior of our body. So if you're having, losing a lot of your hair, it seems really thin and dull, taking a collagen product will help with our hair loss, help with our skin health, and even like how our nails, if our nails are brittle and breaking all the time, we'll notice that as well. So collagen is really, really important for our hair, skin, and our nails and anti-aging, but it's also really good for our digestive health. So if we don't have a good optimal digestive health and liver health, we're going to have some imbalances in our hormones, and that does play a role in our perimenopausal and menopausal years. So if you're not going to the bathroom, ladies, then you're definitely going to have a buildup of that excess estrogen and imbalance. And that can even kick us more into, if we suffer from hormonal imbalances, we're more prone to going into our perimenopausal years earlier. We're more prone to have these signs and these symptoms of perimenopause. Hair growth, skin conditions, hair loss, maybe weight gain. And I'm going to touch on weight gain now because that is one of the things tied with lifestyle changes that lots and lots of, people associate with their perimenopausal years. So when we talk about lifestyle changes and we're going to talk about weight gain, but physical health is really important. So lots of people have talked about why it's really important to work out. Yes, exercise. And so exercise doesn't mean that we need to go out and sign up for the gym and do all of these classes and like commit to something. Exercise means that you're setting some time aside every day to move your body, okay? So if you're a very physical and active person, you already do that, awesome. If you're somebody who's very sedentary, you want to start moving your body, you want to start doing something, start with a 15-20 minute walk. Here's a tip. Download some podcasts. I have a podcast. It's called A Hot Mess. It's pretty funny. You can listen to that, or you can listen to a bunch of other ones, or download your favorite playlist. Pop that in your ear. Sun's coming out. Just go for a walk around the block. Commit to yourself to move your body for at least 20 to 30 minutes a day. Then, if you want, you can start to do resistance training, which is really important, you guys. As we get older as women, our lean muscle mass starts to diminish. We need that strong body, so we need that nice muscle mass to hold our skeletal system in place, okay? Also, the more lean muscle you have, the more fat you burn, okay? So there's the Bermuda Triangle when it comes to our weight when we are in perimenopausal years, okay? So when we're in our 20s, we can eat whatever we want. We probably had, our body, we're like, yeah, I can get away with things, maybe a little bit more so in our 30s, and then we hit our 40s and we're like, what just happened? I'm doing the same exercise routine, I'm eating the same foods, I'm gaining weight. How does this work? why are my pants tight? Okay, so stress can be a part of that, but what ends up happening is that we get into a place where we may start to be eating more fatty foods, we might be having more sugar, maybe we're drinking a little bit more wine these days, maybe we're having dessert. Our resting metabolic rate starts to shift and change. So that means that our metabolism is not working as it's not working how it used to, okay? And here's one of the things when I talked about not under eating. If you're under eating and you're going long periods of time without eating food, i.e. longer than 3 hours, your metabolism is just gonna be like, it's gonna be down there because it doesn't need to work because you're not feeding it. So that's when I say less is not more, okay? You wanna make sure that you're eating frequently every 3 hours, because if we have a sleepy, sluggish metabolism, it's really going to affect our weight loss goals. And we shouldn't need to be taking, here's a tip, we don't need to take things to kickstart our metabolism. We don't need to take pills and potions and all those kind of things to be like, let's get our metabolism going. The best way to get your metabolism up and running and like happy again, make sure that you're eating a well-balanced diet every 3 hours. Don't go long periods of time without eating. Eat good whole foods. Make sure that you are moving your body. Strength training, when you're doing a strength training a couple, times a week, that is building more lean muscle. So that is going to get your metabolism naturally firing. Okay. So just small little things like that can get your blood tested with your doctors if you feel like your metabolism is really sluggish, because sometimes, and more so for women, we're more prone to having a sluggish thyroid or thyroid hypothyroidism in our 40s. More women are being diagnosed in their 40s with hypothyroidism because we've lived with it for so many years, and or due to hormonal imbalances and a lot of stress. So if you're questioning your your metabolism, you're noticing you're gaining a lot of weight, you're having a hard time, go to your doctor and ask them to test your thyroid, because that could be a culprit of why you're gaining weight and having a hard time shedding. Don't just start guessing and start taking a bunch of stuff. There are simple things that you can be doing to help with the weight loss. So a resting metabolic rate, we're eating more calories, not nutrient dense food. We're choosing foods that are empty calories, and we have that decrease in our daily activities. And you guys, it's totally okay when we're going through this time in our life to not feel motivated, okay? When you have a crappy sleep and, you've gained some weight and your moods are just like blah, and the last thing you can think of is putting on the Lululemons, marching to the gym, and finding the motivation to get through a workout because you're just exhausted and you're done, and the kids are driving you nuts and your husband's driving you nuts, and you're like, I still want to do this, and you just want to go hide in the bathtub and watch Sex and the City and have a cry. Like, I'm just talking from my personal experience. Sometimes it's really hard to get out of that funk. Okay, so a lot of us will get into that during this time. That's where you can find, reach out to some girlfriends. I have great girlfriends. We have a text. Let's go for a hike. Let's do this. Sometimes I find that really motivating. Like, I may be like, no, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to sit on my couch. And somebody will be like, do you want to go for a hike? Yep, I do. I want to go for a hike. If you wouldn't have asked, I wouldn't have gone. Or go for a walk. Or try, have a partner that can be like, hey, let's sign up and do this aerobics class together, or whatever you can. Learn to golf, do something, okay? So find a support group, move your body every single day. These 3 things will help with the weight. And just so you know, is that when we're going through perimenopause, that lack of estrogen that our ovaries do produce, okay, will affect where our weight is distributed. And a lot of women, so just, we store our estrogen receptors are, in our hips, our bum, and our thighs, okay? And so estrogen needs to put on weight there, and that's one of the things that shifts and happens when we are going through puberty, right? So you probably notice if you have daughters, they start to put on a little bit of extra body fat on them before they go through these big growth spurts, or before they get their periods and their cycles. And then they also start to get that those curves, right? And so we notice that the hips and stuff, that's a lot of the estrogen. As we go through our perimenopausal years and we have excess estrogen, or we start to notice that decrease, that will start to shift. So a lot of the weight that we may see is really in this abdomen. We might start to notice that we're getting that belly fat, okay? So a lot of that's cortisol, a lot of that's sugar. So if we're eating a diet abundance in sugar, we're gonna notice we're carrying a lot more of that belly fat, but that also we'll start to notice that shift with that estrogen. So a lot of women will be like, I just started getting some weight here in the back. I've got the love handles. I'm starting to know I'm getting a little bit of a gut here. Just so you know, we're going to talk about this next week, but guys also put on that same weight. They get that belly fat here, estrogen. I can't wait to dive in that topic with you guys all next week. But yes, men also go through the same thing because they have estrogen and testosterone. So estrogen will cause weight distribution changes. Okay, so you may notice that now that you're starting to gain weight in places that you never did before, mostly in our legs, bum, thighs, and in this abdomen. And sometimes we can feel it up here. So it affects our appetite and the food choices that we do as well. So again, you want to make sure, if you are noticing one of the signs that we have with our body, if you feel hungry, okay, guys, ladies, please don't ignore your hunger cues, okay? Your body sends you signs and signals all the time, okay? So one of the things, if you were to work with me as a client, I'm going to talk to you about doing a food log, and we're going to go over that food log, and we're going to talk about when you were feeling hungry and when you weren't. And the number one thing, and you guys all have homework now, so do this little task just for yourselves. Do a food log. Write down all the things that you're eating. Notice how frequently you're eating. Look at the foods that you're eating, okay? What I do with my clients is, number one, if they're saying like, I'm always hungry, but I didn't eat, your body's telling you it needs to eat some food, okay? So if you have hunger cues, it doesn't mean that you go and eat a bag of chips or the, the cookies and things like that. But your body's sending you these cues to be like, hey, I'm hungry. You didn't feed me enough of those nutrients that I need to thrive and function. So maybe you need to eat a little bit more protein or some more healthy fats, or maybe you need to eat some more vegetables, things like that, okay? So please don't ignore those hunger cues. Women tell me all the time, like, oh, I was hungry, so I just went upstairs and had a bath and drank some tea and ignored it. No, okay? Your body sends you cues all the time. Just, it's the foods that you choose to feed those hunger cues, okay? You want to choose healthy foods if you're hungry. There's nothing wrong with you being at 7 o'clock being like, I think I should have something to eat. Cut up some vegetables, maybe have a little bit of fruit, have some Greek yogurt, okay? Your body's telling you this. Have a protein shake, have something like that. That doesn't mean you just go and eat bad. If you eat bad food, it's not gonna make you feel fulfilled. You're gonna crave it even more, and then we see more weight gain. But doesn't mean if we're trying to change healthy habits that we cut out our hunger cues and take something so that we don't eat. I don't agree with that. Our body tells us signs and signals all the time. So let's talk about some natural supplements and supports. Otherwise, I'll be here all night, and I want to give all the content away before the webinar. So just so you guys know, the webinar, I'm going to go into all of this in more detail: nutrition, lifestyle, and supports. So you have to come back in 2 weeks, and we'll go over all of that. So let's talk about some natural supports and supplements and vitamins I recommend during this time. And then if you have questions, you can ask. So, and I see here hungry or thirsty. Exactly. Sometimes when we feel like we're hungry, it's actually because we're thirsty. Dehydration, if we're dehydrated, we're not drinking enough water, can make us have the hunger cues. So also have a glass of water, but don't just ignore it, okay? Really important. So let's talk about vitamins and supplements and natural supports. Right before I do that, I didn't mention pelvic floor health, and I think that's really important. When we're talking about our lifestyle and our physical health, pelvic floor health is very important for women at any age, but more so for women when we're going through our perimenopausal and menopausal years. So one of the signs that we didn't talk about of perimenopause and menopause, which is actually very bothersome, is our loss of libido. And I do have a whole segment on this on my podcast and on my page if you want to read more into it. So this is a whole other conversation we can talk about. But women will experience severe vaginal dryness, a loss of desire, and that does wreak havoc if you're in a marriage or a relationship, or even just in your sexual health and sexuality. We kind of feel down on ourselves about this because we have that loss of sexual drive, and that is from a decrease in fluctuation in our hormones. Now, this is one of the myths that I hear a lot, is like when women get older, oh, I don't need to worry about this because we're so in tune with just like, we are bred to have babies, so we just focus on it around then. But then when we get into this years, we're like, oh, we don't need to pay attention to our sexual health. Yes, you do. Just a little side note is that we actually have an entire body part that is built for just pleasure on our body. Okay, so very cool. But we shouldn't ignore our sexual health. So very important for women to pay attention to that. That pelvic floor health. And so our pelvic floor health and working with a pelvic floor physiotherapist is very important. Don't shy away from these kind of things. Vaginal dryness and vaginal atrophy is real, and it is a common symptom. There are things that you can help to support that, and working with a pelvic floor physiotherapist definitely can help you with that. But it doesn't mean that, it's over for you when it comes to your sexual desire. When you have, work on your, natural supports and the lifestyle and things like that, that can come back. And I know that's really bothersome for women. They just kind of feel like that's it, and it puts strain in their relationship with their partners. And I think it's really important to talk to your partners about what's going on. And we'll talk more about how men experience this as well next week. So hard to have the conversation, I know, with our partners sometimes, but I really don't want any of you guys to shy away from this conversation, okay? It's very, very important to still have our natural desire and our sexuality, okay? It really does play a role in our stress levels, our anxiety, our depression, how we feel about ourselves. So we don't want to lose that sense of self when it comes to, our sexuality, okay? So really important. So let's talk about some natural supports and supplements, otherwise I'll be here all night. So there are a bunch of different herbs and products on the market today that are naturally, that are natural, that can help you through this stage. Depending on what stage you are in perimenopause or your menopausal years, there are herbs like Vitex, with chest tree, things like black cohosh, dong quai, dim, maca. These are all really great hormone balancers. So you'll find these in a lot of perimenopausal and menopausal products. And basically how these work is they kind of naturally help to balance out the ratio between estrogen and progesterone. And they actually will help reduce some of those signs. So some of the common signs like hot flashes, irritability, anxiety, irregular periods, painful breasts. Sometimes they can even help with migraines. Taking something like this, a natural support supplement, before you go into your perimenopausal years or when you start to notice these signs and symptoms can really, really help you. Remember, we are not meant to suffer during this. I do not want you ladies to sit there and think that you shouldn't question what's going on in your body, that you shouldn't feel comfortable talking to your healthcare provider about this, that you shouldn't be open about this with your partner, and you definitely should be open about this with other women and creating a support group around this. This is not a time in our life that we need to shy away from, like our hormones. It's not something to be, upset about, in the sense of like, it's shameful that we're going through something that we shouldn't talk about. This is a normal thing. Menopause is totally normal. It's just the end of our reproductive years, and we're stepping into the next stage of our life of not having our periods. And we're becoming, a different, our womanhood is changing. So definitely want you to not feel shy about having these conversations. So this will definitely start taking something like a natural, herb like Vitex, black cohosh, dim, dong quai, those kind of things can help balance out those periods and the symptoms associated with it. So there's a variety of different products on the market. I worked with an incredible brand. It's from Australia, Harmony. I know Nature's Fair carried it. They have a variety of different variety of different supplements on the market. There are a bunch of good ones. Natural Solutions, like Lorna Vanderhaeg. She has Natural Solutions, Menosmart. Harmony has a variety of ones dedicated. They're the only women's brand in Canada that's dedicated to hormone, menopause. So they have like a balance product, but they also have various menopausal products depending on the stage that you are in. I did see somebody here talking about night sweats and if there's certain herbs that can help relieve night sweats. They have one that has Rehmannia in it, so it's a herb that actually produces acts like a coolant in your body, so it brings down the hot. So when we're talking about hot flashes and night sweats, that's because it's a vasomotor symptom. So it increases constriction and dilation of our blood vessels. So we will start to have those hot flashes, and that can be brought on by stress, temperatures, spicy foods, things like that. Too much red wine, alcohol at night, these things can all make hot flashes and night sweats even more so. So I do see evening primrose oil on here. Yes, evening primrose oil is really great for helping balance hormones. It's one of our healthy fats, so evening primrose does work well. Same with like flaxseed. So something like with like Romania, but a lot of, and even maca. So maca is great for helping with estrogen and progesterone. It actually helps naturally increase libido levels for both men and women. We're going to dive a little bit more into maca next week when we talk about men and their hormones, but it's also a natural stress reliever, but it does help with, you know, balancing the estrogen, progesterone, and increasing libido levels in our body. So more about that. So if you're a person that suffers from night sweats and hot flashes, definitely want to look at the foods that you're eating, caffeine. Are you, you know, dress in layers? That definitely does help. But, you know, taking something that helps balance those hormones out will help you with, you know, how frequent those can be. Being consistent with your, you know, your supplementation is really important. So something like I mentioned, like Harmony, these are the products that I was talking about. They're from Australia. Nature's Fair does carry it. They have a variety of ones for perimenopause. Making sure you're taking a good vitamin B6, you guys. So we need, or sorry, vitamin B complex. We need vitamin B6, a vitamin B12, vitamin D3, very important, at least 1 to 3,000 IUs a day, you guys. Vitamin D3 is not just important for immunity, but it's really important for our hormone production. Calcium. So as we go through our menopausal years, we are more prone to osteoporosis as women and heart disease. So very, very important. Not only do we need to eat healthy, well-balanced meals and move our body, move away from being sedentary, reducing our stress levels, as we go through menopause, what ends up happening is that decrease in that estrogen that our ovaries produce will affect our, like I mentioned, the constriction and dilation of our blood vessels. So we are more prone to blockages, blood clots, and or stroke, heart disease, and stroke. So we want to make sure that we're getting enough calcium, okay? So is when our estrogen levels decrease, our body will remove that estrogen, or sorry, as we're producing more estrogen from our adrenal glands and as we go through menopause, we will pull the calcium from our bones because we need that for making estrogen. So you need to make sure that you're taking a good calcium. Women are very, very susceptible to osteoporosis, especially more so after our menopausal years. So taking a good calcium supplement even before we go into our menopausal years. Start taking that after you've listened to this, if you're not taking a calcium supplement. Calcium-rich foods, okay? So vitamin D3 and calcium. Make sure you're taking a good omega-3 fatty acid and an antioxidant, okay? So something like NAC, I like to take, like you need antioxidant-rich foods, but make sure that you are, you know, or even if you're taking a good multivitamin, getting enough vitamin C, antioxidant, like our antioxidant vitamins, so vitamin A, C, and E, vitamin D3, and then more so too, I talked about it last night, make sure you're taking a good iron supplement. So a lot of women in their perimenopausal and menopausal years will, thinning hair, fatigue is very associated with how much, you know, with our periods, especially if we're having those fluctuation in our cycles. So if we're bleeding more, having more clots, we're going to be more prone. I see it time and time again. Women during their perimenopausal years will go to their doctor and they find out that they are anemic or they have very low iron levels. So taking a good iron support at any age. Okay, so I talked about Kids Star last week. This is the BioFay, 50 milligrams of elemental iron. And also, somebody just asked a question about maca. So maca is, it's a root. We're going to talk more about it next week, but it is from Peru. It does give natural energy boosts, but you can put it in your smoothie. It does, like I said, it does definitely, it does help with that estrogen progesterone. Lastly, collagen. So everyone's asking, there it is, the question about collagen. So definitely collagen. So there's marine collagen and there is bovine. Right now I'm taking marine. This is the Organica Evervest. This is actually 3 grams of collagen with vitamin C. I put these in my water. They're little tablets. They taste amazing. The rose one is actually my favorite. But you can do their enhanced collagen, which is bovine, and or you could do marine collagen. I would do, you know, at least, you know, 1 or 2 scoops of collagen a day. People ask me all the time, can you overdo it on collagen? No, your body can only absorb a certain amount, but I just put it in my coffee in the morning or your smoothie, or like these are little effervescent tablets that you can put in your water. Generally, people will start to know the benefits of collagen, so their skin starts to look a little bit better. It doesn't reverse the signs of aging, you guys, but it does slow down the signs of aging. But I do notice that the little fine lines kind of disappear. My skin actually feels more hydrated within about anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks if you're consistent. So I do see a lot of questions here. Maca does not have caffeine. It's just natural. It's a natural, it gives you natural energy, but it does not contain any caffeine. So I do see a lot of questions here. I will make sure that I answer all of these questions for you personally after tonight. I just want to make sure that I have gone over everything here before I let you guys go. As I mentioned, this is a journey, you guys. This isn't, you know, you're not meant to suffer. Our perimenopausal and our menopausal years are just the transition into the next stage. There is various ways that you can go through this, okay? So I really recommend, you know, if you want to take the more natural route, look at your lifestyle, look at your stress levels, look at your nutrition, okay? Move your body every single day. Doesn't have to be intense, but just set a small goal, walk, do some body weight, lots of stuff on, you know, online for workouts. Start getting, if you want to do, you know, natural supplementation. Everybody that works at Nature's Fair in their wellness department is all trained on their supplements. They can help you with any of those questions about the products that they have on the shelf that will work for you. What works for me may not work for you, but make sure you ask the questions, okay? Make sure you start jotting down your symptoms. One great app that I just discovered that I wanted to share with you guys, Seed Cycling is great. I just saw that. Seed Cycling is great, you guys. Is the same thing when I talked about tracking your cycles for your periods. You can use something called the Flow Tracker, but there is also one for women in menopause that I just found the other day. It's called Balance, okay? So it's Balance, the Menopause Tracker. It's from a bunch of women in the UK. I believe a menopause doctor. She's got some great content in there. But there's a lot of articles. There's a lot of research out there now. There's a lot of support groups. So there's a ton of stuff out there now. So don't shy from asking questions. Talk to your healthcare provider, if that's your medical doctor or a naturopath doctor. Work with a holistic nutritionist or a dietitian or somebody. If you are wanting to kind of get that under control, speak to the people at Nature's Fair about natural products that can help with your hormones and during this time. And if you have questions about your hormones, ask about getting them tested. Take the guessing out of it. But, you know, just understand that this is a journey. There's going to be ebbs and flows, but you're not alone. We're all women. We're all going through this. We all are amazing. And I just want you guys to feel confident and empowered through this next stage in your life. We definitely don't need to shy away from this. There is definitely nothing wrong with us going through this, and we're all in this together. So on that note, I'm just going to leave it there. I am going to be choosing a winner for tonight. So I've got a bunch of great brands that are working with me in the next couple of weeks, but tonight I'm putting together my own personal basket for you guys. So I am going to be giving you guys my top 5 supplements. So you've already seen some of them. So collagen, you guys are going to be getting omega-3 oil. We're going to be doing one of the menopause products. And then also I'm going to have some other stuff in there for you guys. So we'll pick out a winner. I'll let you know who the winner is after this. Well, Nature's Fair will choose it for me. And then I'll reach out to you so I can mail you that to you guys. So next week, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. You can find me on my website at www.ahotmess.ca. My podcast is on there. You can reach out to me personally. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook. And I look forward to seeing you guys all next week as we talk about men and their hormones. So this will be good. And then in 2 weeks, it'll be the webinar where we tie it all together. Okay, so thank you guys all so much for joining me for this evening. Have a great night, and I will see you guys all next week. Bye.